Welcome to Scale, Prophecy of the Gemini. This is the second set of cards in the universe of Scale, with some fun new cards, abilities, and rules. This is considered an advanced form of Scale, so we'd recommend starting with our Rise of Dragons cards before playing Prophecy of the Gemini. You do not need the first set of cards to play, but all of the rules still carry over unless specifically stated. Feel free to check out our Scale, Rise of Dragons How to Play video to learn the original rules, as this video only covers the new concepts introduced in the Prophecy of the Gemini. Let's begin. You and your friends will battle in the realm of Infinitus, with 42 different glyphs and 10 unique Gemini. The goal of Scale is to take all of your opponent's treasure. If a player runs out of treasure, they lose. To defeat an opponent, you must take all of their treasure or make them draw from an empty deck. Note, the graveyard will no longer automatically shuffle into the deck when the deck is empty, so this strategy is slightly more viable. Okay, let's look at our new card layout. The new card format allows much easier identification of card types, abilities, and power levels. The power number is now at the bottom of the card. Why? Well, because we have these cool new card types called Glyphs, and you can stack as many as you want on a single space, which creates what we call a stack, and it will look something like this. We will learn more about those later, so let's take a closer look at this layout. In the bottom left corner here, you can see that we have a little flag that says Glyph. These flags will always show the card's type, and may be color-coded. Card types are a new concept in our game that allows us to build in more interactions that work independently from the card abilities. A card's type remains true even if another card removes all of the card's abilities. Now, in the bottom right corner, we have our gift ability flags. This is where you'll see one of our gift ability keywords to help signify that this is an ongoing ability, such as enduring or temporal. These flags directly correlate to the little gem indicators on the left side of the ability box. If you see an E inside of a green gem, that means the text next to it is an enduring ability, also indicated by the flag on the bottom right. Why are they in both places? Let's go back to our stack again to see. Since these flags are here, you can more easily see which cards have enduring or temporal abilities that continue after the card activates, helping you remember what's going on. Some card abilities also may be separated by a line, usually indicating two different effects, or two different parts of one ability that work together and can be countered in unique ways. If one part of the ability is enduring, you'll now see the gem indicator next to that part of the ability. The borders of our cards will now also indicate important things about them, such as types or certain abilities. Okay, that covers our new layout. Now let's take a look at card types. The first new card type is the Gemini. The 10 Gemini in this deck are powerful and chaotic creatures that work exactly like the dragons from our first set of cards, meaning only one Gemini can fit on a space at a time. If all of your spaces are already occupied by a Gemini and you play another Gemini, it can activate the ability, but then it will be sent to the graveyard unless the ability opens up or creates a space when it activates. This works the same with other creatures such as dragons from set 1, so dragons and Gemini cannot share a space. The Gemini in this deck will all have a black border and a white type flag. Alright, let's take a look at our second new card type, the Glyphs. Glyphs are magical items and artifacts made of ancient power that each contain the soul of a living being. They are so powerful that they can attack and defend in combat by themselves. The Glyphs in this deck will have a golden border unless they are Swift, an ability which we will cover later. They also have a golden flag in the bottom left. Glyphs also always have a name that is 2 words, such as these. As you know, Glyphs work a little differently than all the other cards in Scale so far, because you can put as many of them as you want on a single space, creating what we call a stack. You can also add them to a space that is occupied by another card type, such as a Gemini, essentially equipping the items to that creature and powering it up. There is no limit to the number of glyphs you can put on a space, but be careful not to put all of your glyph eggs in one space basket, because there are a lot more unique space-related abilities in this set that can have disastrous effects on large stacks. Now that we know our new card types, let's go back to our stack to look at how combat will be changing because of them. When a player declares an attack or defense with one of their stacks, all of the cards in that space must commit to the attack or defense. Each card's power level is still separate, but the whole stack must commit to the action as one singular attack or one singular defense. Since every card in a space will commit the action together, you will add their power levels together to take treasure from your opponent or deal damage to their cards. During the damage phase, if your stack has lower total power than the opposing stack, you may need to choose which cards within the opposing stack to deal damage to. Let's look at an example of this. If you declare an attack with this stack, which contains 2 cards with powers of 2 and 5, you will have 7 total power to use to damage your opponent's stack with. Let's say this 2-card stack with powers of 2 and 3 will be defending against your stack. Now, if both players wish to pass on the reaction phase, we will move right to the damage phase. In the damage phase, all damage happens simultaneously, but the attacker will assign their damages first in any case where the choice is relevant, such as with multiple attackers and defenders. If the attacker's total power is higher than the defending stack, all of the cards in the defending stack will be destroyed anyway, so no damage assignment is necessary for the attacker, which is true for this example. So let's allow the defender to assign their damage. As you can see, the defender has a total of 5 power to damage your cards with. If they use 2 of that power to damage your 2 power card, they will only have 3 damage left over, which will not be able to destroy your much larger and scarier 5 power card. So, the wise choice here would be for them to use all 5 of their damage to destroy your 5 power card, leaving you with only 2 power in that stack. Now that we have glyph combat figured out without using the reaction phase, let's back up and try using the reaction phase to our advantage. During the reaction phase, you may play more cards, but you cannot declare any more stacks as attacking or defending. But you may add cards to your already attacking or defending stacks, as long as the card type does not prohibit it. Remember, you cannot have 2 Gemini or dragons on a single space. Let's look at that same example if the defender were to play a card in the reaction phase. You've got a 7 power stack, they've got a 5 power stack. They play Serpent's Ring, which has 4 power, which you pass on, and they pass as well, allowing it to activate. Since the ring is a glyph, it can be placed into any space regardless of its occupants, and so the opponent decides to add it to their stack, bringing the stack's power to 9. If both players now pass on the empty loop, the game will move to the damage phase, and all of the cards in your stack will be destroyed, but you will still deal 7 damage to their stack. Because you won't be able to destroy all the cards in their stack, you may decide to destroy specific cards if you wish. The wise choice here would be to destroy the 4 power and 3 power cards, leaving them with just a 2 power stack. Remember, all damage is simultaneous, so do not worry about removing specific card abilities before others to calculate effects turning on. If they destroy your 2 cards with enduring abilities, and you destroy one of their cards with an enduring ability, the abilities will stay active until the damage phase ends, where all 3 will then shut off simultaneously. Also, any cards joining an exhausted space will become exhausted as well, because all cards on a space must share the exhaust status. If for some reason a single card is exhausted by another card, all of the cards on that same space will become exhausted as well. This will only happen when mixing set 1 and 2 cards so far. Alright, so we've learned about card types and how to use them in combat. Let's learn some new terminology before we go over the new abilities. If a card says in play, it refers to all the cards in the loop and on the battlefield for the specified player or players. If a card says this card, it is referring to itself. If a card says you control, it includes all cards you control in the loop on the battlefield and in your hand. No player can control a card in the graveyard, deck, or exile in the shared deck mode. Now, let's learn about our new gift abilities. Our most important new gift ability is Swift. These cards work differently than any other card when played to the loop. If you wish to play a Swift, it must be your priority to play a card, meaning it must be your turn with an empty loop, or you are responding to your opponent having played a non-Swift card to the loop, or your opponent passed on an empty loop on their turn. Normally when a card is played, it must be passed by all players in order to activate. When a card with Swift is played, players do not get an option to play or pass. The exceptions to this are if the loop is reversed or the Swift is switched or otherwise added into the loop by another card ability, but is not the next card to leave the loop. Also, other active card abilities may still interact with or affect it when it is played, such as Lightspeed Loot. Swifts will have their own special Swift flag above the ability box to help identify it, and the card border will be bright white. Our next new gift ability is Temporal. Temporal means that the ability is temporary and is only active until it says so. Temporal has its own color-coded flag and a gem indicator with a T in it. Temporal abilities will affect one or more cards or zones while the cards or zones are still in play. If a card affected by one of these temporal abilities is added to the deck, hand, graveyard, or exile, then it will revert to its original printed state unless a universal ability is affecting it as well. For example, cards that copy others, cards that have lost their abilities for the turn, and cards with power levels that have been reduced, increased, or switched. If the card says this turn, for the turn, or something similar, that means the ability will shut off upon moving to the end phase of the current turn. Our next gift ability is Steal. A card with Steal will always have a number next to the keyword. When a card with Steal activates its ability, take the stated number of treasure from one opponent, or you may split that number up between multiple opponents. Draw is now a gift ability that is a keyword with a number next to it. The indicated player will draw cards from the deck equal to the number next to the word draw. Choose is another gift ability which will give the player activating the card some sort of choice. If it says choose one, you will choose one of the following items listed with a dot next to it and activate that item. Other cards may have options with dots next to them, but will have different requirements that will be explained on the card. Remember from set 1 that Enduring means the ability continues to be active while the card is still on the battlefield, and Universal means it affects all cards for one or more players for the turn. Alright, that about does it for gift abilities. For information on any not listed here, please see our How to Play video or the rulebook for Rise of Dragons. Now let's move on to the new game mechanic interactions. Power reduction. Many cards will now reduce the power of other cards. If a card has its power reduced to 0, it is destroyed, unless somehow protected. A card's power cannot be reduced below 0. Space selection. Many card abilities will say, choose a space. If control of a card is switched, and that card has an enduring ability, which required a space to be chosen when it activated, the original targeted space continues being affected. You do not get to choose a new space unless you are somehow reactivating the card from the loop. For example, if I'm binding an opponent's space with the Galaxy Chains, and they use Trader's Mark to steal my space containing Galaxy Chains, they do not get to pick a new space to target with the Galaxy Chains. It will still be affecting their space, even though they now control the chains. If a card states add a card to any space, remember, you cannot force multiple non-glyphs to occupy one space, and they must go to another open space or be sent to the graveyard if no qualifying space is available, regardless of any protection given by abilities. Remember, when a space is destroyed, all cards in that space go to exile, regardless of any active protections from card abilities. Face-down interactions. Any face-down cards that have their power reduced by any amount are turned face-up to check for destruction. If a Swift is somehow played face-down to the loop, it still simply leaves the loop and activates, unless it is not the next card activating from the loop. Enduring interactions. For any situation where multiple enduring abilities are relevant, the active player's abilities will trigger first. Remember that enduring abilities do not recalculate during the damage phase. Any enduring abilities active going into the damage phase will be active until the end of the damage phase. Therefore, any cards destroyed in that phase will do so all at once. Then in the end phase, the field can be recalculated for enduring abilities. Damage phase interactions. When a player is attacking and the other player is defending that attack, only the player with the lower total stack power needs to select which cards within the other stack to damage. However, in the case of multiple combatant stacks on each side with varying levels of power, the attacker must decide the damage dealt from their losing stacks first. And lastly, don't forget that when a card leaves the loop, you can choose to activate the ability before or after it enters a space, unless the ability requires the card to be on a space, such as Vortex Maul's Switch ability. This is important when dealing with cards like Galaxy Chains. Well, that covers everything new about Scale in Set 2, Prophecy of the Gemini. For specific card clarifications, please see our card library at www.scale.cards.
Play for free now at scale.cards/play.
Don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. Or check out our other YouTube videos that break down how some of our more complicated cards work.